going in okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is this where you crack out your opera? Warm your voice up?
Yeah.
Follow along. All right. Coming through okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sound-wise from there?
1, 2, 1, 2.
Uh-huh.
The cracks in the wall are proof.
I love that delay at the end. There's one you had on the vocal earlier, and I just stopped the track, and it was like 10 seconds of a delay. It was amazing. Oh, I need to learn how to do that. Okay. Checking this now. What are we doing here?
So were there any questions from last time or things people wanted to know?
Yeah. Yeah. There was let me just have a check now. There was one about levels into plugins that came up a few times.
Mm-hmm.
About were you deliberately overdriving the levels in?
Yeah, so that one is basically since all those now are 32-bit floating point,
Yeah.
then every signal you run into it can be clipped and carry on this information
Right.
to the next stage. So basically you can clip something, clip the next thing, as long as at some point you bring the level down, you
Right.
prevent clipping to occur in the D2A, which if that's your last,
Right.
thing on your chain, then you'll hear the clipping then. But even if you take it down one step before, then you'll have no clipping because the floating point carries the clipping over to the next stage, and then
Yeah.
at the last stage you bring it down, so it's fine. It's only if you
Okay.
don't, then you'll hear the clipping coming out of your, so the whatever will truncate the signal back to 24-bit
Yeah.
or 16-bit would
Not be able to read anything about.
yeah. So
Yeah.
with plugins, I tend not to clip them intentionally, unless it's some specific ones, which because usually they are transparent and they will carry the clipping information or the overshoot
Mm.
to the next level. So most plugins are like that. Some of them aren't, especially the modeling ones, which have like overdrive simulation, harmonic distortion simulation. Then obviously the level that you go into them will make a difference.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's the question was probably referring to the API, which is clipping, because I'm boosting. I'm using it to boost the level, and I'm actually looking for that clipping. So that's intentional because now it wouldn't clip and will carry it to the next plugin, which is the L2, if I switch off the analog. So if I do this and I'm pushing it hard and it's clipping, but
Green
it
eyes,
stops
cut
before
ties
it,
with a
it,
couple of
it's basically
friends.
clipping before it gets to the
Short
L2, so the L2
hair,
is not
I
doing
fear
anything.
everywhere I
Right.
went.
It's only compressing
Last place,
0.2 dB, which is where it's at. But if I cancel
I felt small,
the analog,
I crawl, but never reach the
now
end.
this will kick in.
Now you want my
because
time.
now
Now you're
it's
asking
running it
favors.
into the L2, and the L2 does the limiting. So if I do
Never
that,
want to lie. That's not my
that's
flavor.
clip now. So I'm actually using this feature
Yeah.
to
Wow.
to get clipping, which I want.
I'd never have thought to have done that.
But normally, like EQs, most EQs, the Q10 and the linear phase EQ, the waves linear phase EQ will also clip, but other than that, all other EQs will not clip and will carry on the information to the next stage.
All right.
However, like again, something like the Sheps 73, because it has a lot of harmonic distortion, which is a part of simulating the 1073 channel,
Yeah.
then obviously it doesn't have a linear it doesn't have a linear response, so it has a non-linear response. So the level you go into it will make a huge difference on the sound.
Yeah.
But if it's something like Renaissance EQ or HEQ, then it will be transparent and it will,
Okay. Got you.
whatever level you get into it, it will just not make any change to the level as such on the output, even if you clip it,
Yeah.
as long as you bring the fader or whatever
Yeah.
down, you bring the level down,
Yeah.
so it doesn't clip when it gets to your D2A.
Wow, it's amazing what you learn. Isn't it? That's mad. We've got 11 minutes before the actual show, and I've already had my mind blown. Amazing stuff. Okay. I just want to point out this is actually the pre-show, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Mad that I've learned so much. Okay, I've got actually, the guys have sent me a question in here. And, let's scroll on this. There it is. What are we going to do today? Diablo has asked. You going to use a console for summing or use a plugin or?
Yeah, both, and I'll actually say all that when we officially start. So when everyone joins in, so I'll
Cool.
leave that to then.
Okay, here's a good one from Ricky actually. I've noticed that what DAW you're using, Pro Tools versus Logic for instance, makes a difference to the audio, but what difference does your hardware audio interface make when you're mixing in the box? So lists Pro Tools, HDX, UAD Apollo interface, Prism, Apogee or Dangerous Music Converters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you're hearing is the sound that's coming out of your D2A if you're mixing in the box. So that's the last stage of processing or coloring that the signal is going through. And obviously after that there's your amp and speakers, whether they're already powered, so they have an amp inside or not. But so basically it will be, or your center section with your volume, your dim, whatever. So everything will obviously affect the sound. So when mixing in the box, the quality or the sound of your D2A will have an effect. Although it has to be said that these days most converters are pretty decent.
Mm.
So it's hard to come by something that doesn't sound okay or will compromise the sound in such a way that will interfere with or distort your mix or the way you make this mix decisions.
Mm.
So yeah, it does have an effect on the sound, but much less so if you're mixing in the box as opposed to mixing through a desk where you have 60 of them or 48 of them. You'll hear the coloration much more because it will apply to every channel, and the noise, which varies between different manufacturers, different models, will vary as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question from Nick, and you've got 8 minutes 23 seconds before we start in which to answer this one. It's disappeared now. Is there any advantage to summing analog, even if it's not an expensive mixer? Which is kind of what you were saying just then, wasn't it?
Yeah, again, I'll be talking about that
Yeah.
in 8 minutes. So we'll
8
save
minutes
that.
5 seconds to be precise.
Okay.
Do you have any idea why some companies advertise their summing boxes as having some magic headroom, when we all know DAWs are a 32-bit float engine which has an infinite amount of headroom?
That's a good question. But again, I want to discuss it when we remind me that one later, when everyone joins in,
This is where I get my magic
Because,
pen out.
because it's a good one.
Okay, I've just invented a rule for myself. Don't use a black pen on a black tabletop. Okay, what was the question?
It's okay, I'll try to remember it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Oh, yeah, I see. Magic headroom. We haven't, believe it or not, 194 people listening
Already?
to us
Nice.
going on, yeah. Gary asks, now you might cover this later. How do you determine the delay compensation for your DAW when summing with external gear? I always get phase issues when I try to go out of the box.
Well, I don't. Obviously, you will have some delay coming back, and that's also something that we'll be hearing soon. So going out of the D2As, going through the desk, which doesn't add any delay, but going into another A to D will add some delay to the whole process. You know, in film and when you do post production or anything that has to stay in sync with other things, then it's an issue. But if you're just mixing a track and then you're bouncing it, recording it from the desk or from any, like through the desk or through any other external hardware and back into the session, yeah, it will be delayed by however many tens of milliseconds possibly, but it doesn't matter, and you can always shift it back manually to if you need it to be in sync with other stuff. But usually it would be the final 2-track mix, which you're then going to trim and to fade anyway. So it's not usually something that will be in sync with anything. However, you can set in Logic, you can set the recording delay, so you can set up a negative, so you can run a ping, you can run a tone, record it, see how much it records late going through your hardware setup, and then set up a negative recording delay by the same amount of samples. So then it will be in sync again. So there are ways of doing that.
Pretty cool. Right, I'm just going to write down that question. I've got 4 minutes 45 in which to write it down before this webinar officially starts. That was Andrew. Okay, so can I be cheeky and just give a a quick shout out to my wife who's watching.
Of course.
Hi.
Hi, and congratulations on your
Oh, thank you very much.
marriage.
I was told to do that. That's embarrassing. I know. I'm sorry. But I love her loads. Cheesy.
Well, I never met her, so I think it's about time.
Oh, pressure on. Pressure on. She's probably just gone, bah! Okay. A couple of... which DAW are you using today? I know when I first watched your webinars, I could not work out what DAW you were using, and it
Yeah,
drove me
because I'm
mad.
using weird skins, and I changed the way my Logic looks, but it's still Logic, and I kind of like the way Pro Tools looks. I mean, to be honest, like 10 years ago, it used to be the most, like the ugliest interface ever. But now it's actually one of the, I wouldn't say prettiest ones, but it's kind of, I don't know, easy on the eye. And I'm not that much into the dark theme that that was introduced in Logic 10. So yeah, so I do modify the way it looks, but it's still Logic.
I love when you open up your Logic and you've managed to get your name on the intro screen. That's impressive. Still haven't worked out how you've done that, but it's good. It's very good. Okay, we've got 2 minutes 44. I think it's time to stick another question in there. I'm going to skip that one. Well, I'm going to read it, but I think you'll probably cover it. Do you recommend the analog noise on in the NLS plugin? Is it contributing to the summing? Is that something you'll talk about later? Or
I will talk about this later.
okay,
That's a good one to remember as well.
okay, analog noise.
Just right noise.
Yeah.
I'll probably touch
Me and my
this
note
up.
making.
Yeah.
So that was from Kurt. Cheers, Kurt. John Mark asks, I do house and techno. How important is summing for these genres?
You know, it's not important at all if you don't like the sound of it. And if you do like the sound of it, like anything else in music or regarding sound or anything in life, basically, if it's right for you, then use it. And if not, then not. There's no rule. It takes it kind of smoothens the transients a little bit. It adds some warmth. I'll be talking about the NLS and how there's a certain element of randomness between each channel, which is something we get on a desk, and we've modeled it on the NLS. So that's something that also adds some width, and especially on stereo tracks, and it makes everything a little bit bigger. Summing in general is kind of a small. It's it's not, doesn't have a huge impact, but it adds a little bit of depth. So I don't know. I would say try with or without and see what suits you best.
Yeah. I love that NLS plugin. That for me.
We'll show it in a minute.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Time to start, isn't it?
We're pretty close, yeah, 30 seconds. So we're do our warm-ups. Right. Okay, so you ready for this?
Yeah, do your thing.
Okay, I've got 10 seconds. Hi everyone, welcome to Waves Open Sessions. My name is Keith and I'm your moderator for this webinar. Today we'll be having a masterclass with producer, mixer and mastering engineer Yoad Nevo. But before we get started, let's go through the format of today's webinar. In just a minute, Yoad is going to open up a session to show you his unique summing techniques. Yoad will be using headphones during the webinar to prevent the speakers from leaking into his microphone. We encourage you to listen to the webinar with headphones or suitable monitors, not from laptop speakers, so you can get the best possible listening experience. Please let us know what you think of the webinar on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using hashtag WavesOpenSessions during the webinar and after. Throughout the webinar, we'll be having an open Q&A. Please submit any questions you have and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can get to. You can send your questions in at any time, but you won't see them in the chat as they'll first go to me and then I'll read them to Yoad one at a time. We've also got some questions we want to ask you, like the one we've already posted in the chat during the pre-show, which is, how experienced are you with summing? And I have some knowledge, 66%, which is probably where I sit at the moment. I have no idea what that is, 30%, and only 4% saying I'm an expert. So this is going to be useful for all of us, I think. And now, let me welcome our presenter for today's masterclass, London-based producer, mixer, and mastering engineer Yoad Nevo, whose work can be heard on best-selling releases by Sia, Giggs, Goldfrapp, Pet Shop Boys, and many more. Please welcome Yoad Nevo to Waves Open Sessions.
Hi, and welcome to Waves Open Sessions. Today, I'll be talking about summing, analog summing, summing in the box, NLS, which is a Waves summing plugin. For those of you who are watching this for the first time, I strongly recommend to watch the previous session where I've gone through some of the mix procedures on this song. And let me play a bit of this song. This is a song I wrote together with artist Nina Smith. It's called Whiteboards. Let me play a verse and the chorus, and then we'll start.
Green eyes, cut ties with a couple of friends. Short hair, I fit everywhere I went. Last place, two-faced, never knew about trends. I felt small, I'd crawl, but never reached the end. Now you want my time, now you're asking favors. I never want to lie, that's not my flavor. Even after all this time, I decide to breathe. Every time you hear me cry, understand I'm free. 'Cause everyone will try not to fall, but I won't ignore the truth. Nobody can lie anymore. The cracks in the wall are proof. Whiteboards, classic.
Okay, so at the moment we're hearing everything just running through Logic. All the tracks are being sent to auxiliary 8 at unity gain, so at 0, and we're just listening back to the output. So through this channel.
Everything brand new.
Yeah, so everything is going through here. At the same time, I have all the tracks going through the desk, and we can actually A/B and hear what it sounds like with summing and without summing. Analog summing, that is. So let's do a little A/B.
To change, everything they do. I shout for more than the books you choose.
So that's going through the desk now.
So I walked, there's nothing left to lose.
And that's in the box.
Telling me such lies just to make some paper, instead of wasting time.
So you can hear that when it's playing through the desk, it sounds a little bit warmer, a little bit wider, and there is a little bit of very low end, like very low frequencies that are getting cut off. And this is because, I'm going to show you this is basically the curve of this is the frequency response of the desk. So this is that's the Q-Clone plugin, which allows me to measure the frequency response of a hardware EQ. This is something that we'll probably cover in another open session. But at the moment, you can see that there's a little bit of low frequency dip here, and this is because of the transformers of the Neve transformers that, although sounding really amazing and kind of bouncy, they do take a little bit of the bottom end out. But that really doesn't matter because it's like, I don't know, half a dB or something like that. Can easily be we can easily compensate for that. But in any case, a lot of the times I use high pass filter, to take out the very low frequencies. So it's fine. Let me play a little bit that same section again, so you can focus on that. So that's the Neve.
Whiteboards, class halls, everything brand new. Teach me
That's in the
to
box.
change everything they do. I shout for more than the books you choose. I felt.
So although the very low frequencies are getting a little bit filtered out, I'm hearing a lot more presence in the lows on the lead vocal. So I'm getting a lot of presence in the low mid. Now again, this is not really a frequency response issue, but it's more like a depth and headroom related thing. So let's start by showing how I actually calibrate the session, the desk. So here I have the tape, the Kramer tape, which I'm using as metering, and I'm using this Logic EQ as an analyzer. You can see that the resolution is very high, so I'm looking at minus 100 dB, and this is all the tracks. This is now 40 tracks, 40 channels on the desk with the noise of the converters. Everything is on, and we're at about minus 95 dB. Now, if I solo one track and mute it, then this is now the noise of the D2A, of the A to D converter, with a bit of the noise of the Neve bus, the Neve stereo bus. That's at minus 100 dB. If I unmute this channel, you see that it adds maybe a little bit. It's hard to say, but if I now unsolo, so that's everything on, I get a little bit of, I would say that's a bit of hum at 50 hertz, and that's these are the harmonics of this hum. All good, because this is very, very low. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to play a tone, the 1 kilohertz tone, and the it's playing at minus 18 dB full scale, and this is my 0 dB. So I'm working on minus 18 dB. That's my headroom. So let me just bring the master fader down, because we don't really need to listen to all that very loud. So I keep my first 6 channels for surround monitoring. So I start with 7 and 8. So this is fine. Then I very quickly go through the channels and making sure that the faders are exactly calibrated, so that the desk is transparent in terms of level. So everything I run through it will come back at the same level. And this allows me to, this allows me to recall mixes, because I know that when I do this calibration process every time, then every mix I would run through the desk. Oops, I have some. You can see that I have a problem with this channel. This is either 29. Yeah, that's 29. So 30 is okay. 29 is giving me some problems. Now this is analog, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to boost it by 30 dB, give it a bit of a nudge, and now it's fine. It's getting into a bit of a shock, and then it starts behaving again. That's like basically fiddling with the knob or the switch. It's probably the insert switch. Okay, so once it's all calibrated and I'm happy that the level is exactly where I want it to be, yeah, this is all good. So now I'm gonna go back to the main mix. So basically now everything I play through the desk will play at the same level as if it was not going through the desk. And this is very important, because now I can be sure that anytime I recall this mix, I basically just load the calibration session, the one that I just showed you, and then I can load the project and it will play the same, at the same level. So in order to route the different tracks to the different channels on the desk, I can do it. Let me just show it. Okay, let me undo this. So now everything goes to 1 and 2. So there's no summing whatsoever. Now there's a few ways of doing it. One way is to just basically run it incrementally. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Let Logic do it. You can do it in Pro Tools. You can do it in Cubase. Basically, run up to 47, 46, and 47, and then start again from 7, 8, and that's kind of everything is routed. Every track is routed to a different channel, to a different couple of channels on the desk. There's another way of doing it, and that is if I really want no summing or as little as possible summing to occur within Logic, and I want the actual summing to happen on the desk itself. And for that, I would say that I can send this track and this track to the same stereo output, so to the same couple of faders on the desk, because they're not playing together. And then I can send these two to the same faders. And then I can send these two to the same, each one to a different stereo output, yeah, but they can live on the same one because they're not playing together. So the summing will occur on the desk itself and not in Logic. I used to do that, but it takes quite a lot of time. And I find that basically, and this is something interesting that we discovered while developing the NLS plugin. We measured, we took an SSL desk that was Spike's very famous desk that like loads of huge hits were mixed on this desk. We had my desk, which is a great sounding desk, and we had Mike Hedges' old TG desk, an EMI desk. And basically we measured every channel, but we also measured the relationship between the different channels and what happens when to a channel when the channel next to it is playing. What happens to the power supply of the desk, whether it draws more power or less power, and creating basically variation in the power supply to all the channels at once. And we discovered that these effects are quite minute and almost unmeasurable. And what we did discover is that the actual sound of summing is the sound of the channels, of the individual channels that the signal is going through. And that's why we modeled each channel. But I'll talk about this in a minute when I'll talk about the tracks routed to different channels on the desk, which are calibrated. So whatever comes in goes out without any change to the level. However, the change we do get is the harmonic distortion, the noise, and this is one of the questions that we had, whether the noise contributes to the effect of summing. We have the very small variations between each channel. There would be minute frequency response differences due to the age of the capacitors. Capacitors, especially on a desk like this, which is a Class A, and it gets very, very hot. The capacitors don't really like the heat, and after, I don't know, 10,000 hours, this desk stays always on. After about 10,000 hours or 15,000 hours, they will start basically messing up with the frequency response of the signal that goes through. And there's loads of capacitors in every channel. So there will be some very minute frequency response differences between each channel. And this contributes to, I say that's one channel is playing up. I need to check that. See, there's a little bit of noise on one channel. So all these factors will contribute to the sonic kind of enhancement that you get running music through the desk. And for me, although it's a very, it's not a huge difference, but for me, it makes a lot of difference because I can hear the depth and I can hear the width, and especially now I'm playing a mono track. I'm playing the vocals.
Eyes, cut ties with a couple of friends.
Do you remember we had this? I showed you in the previous episode that I have this weird effect.
Last place, two-faced, never knew.
So maybe we'll select another track which is more clean. That's a stereo track. Let's stick to the vocal for now. So basically, the vocal is mono, but it's going through two outputs. It's going to 19 and 20, and which are hard panned left and right. And these channels are not the same. So what would in the box be completely mono is now not mono anymore. I mean, it's not stereo. It's not like a chorus. It's not like any effect or anything like that, but it gives it a very gentle, I don't know, variation, and all these things accumulate when you have a large number of tracks. And even if you don't, just running through the channels is adding a lot of richness and goodness to the sound, and I really like that. So, any questions so far?
Okay, just to clarify, the large majority of that from the calibration onwards was looking at using the desk for summing, wasn't it? For analog summing there. Yeah, someone was just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, we have some excellent questions there. We have 4 of them. We have 2 from Yannick. His first one says, some say that sending a stereo track through analog gear is enough to get the flavour. Others claim that you get more benefit by summing more channels, which sounds kind of logical to me. Any opinions?
Both true. I mean, obviously, when you get a good channel or a good stereo channel or a couple of channels, and you send something through it and record it back to your DAW, it will sound different. I'm not going to say it will sound better. You know, I think it sounds better in most cases on some, I don't know, EDM tracks or some like hardcore. Actually, on some hip hop tracks or grime, I would always try to do the summing through the desk. I'm not always using it. Sometimes it sounds better in the box. The reason for that is there's nothing. You would not find more headroom going through analog gear. You would not find more headroom going through your D2A and back to an A to D. Even if you just, connect them to each other on your, however posh and amazing your converter is, there's always going to be more headroom in the box. And what we're doing the summing for is not to increase the headroom, because it doesn't. It actually decreases the headroom by quite a bit, because you could see, you saw earlier that the headroom I have is only 100 dB. I mean, it's quite a lot. But here I have 144 dB if I would do it in the box. So that's almost 50% more headroom, if you like. It's only theoretical, because you have the noise of the A to Ds when you record and other things. But in theory, if you were to use only virtual instruments and no noise whatsoever, then you'll have the ultimate headrooms. And for EDM, for hip hop tracks, sometimes that's what you want and that's what you use, and you get this enormous headroom. So again, it's all a matter of taste, but we're talking about summing, and for me, it's something that I always at least try. Even on tracks that from experience, I know that I'm maybe 90% not going to use it. I would try it anyway, because it does other things. Another one?
Yeah, I'm going to join 2 questions together here. The first one's from JR, who asks, is there benefit to summing both in the box of NLS and through analog gears simultaneously? But then I'm going to connect that to Steve's question, who asks or says, I have 16 channels of summing with a Rupert Neve Portico 5059.
Mm-hmm.
I also use the NLS plugin on individual channels and also my bus stems that I send to the Portico. Is this overkill in your opinion? Would you do one over the other?
In music, there's no such thing as overkilling, I don't think. There's no such thing as underkilling. I mean, either sounds good or not, or you either like it or not. And so it sounds like an interesting combination, especially because due to the fact that you can use different. So you have your Portico summing box, which is kind of a Neve flavor, but then on the NLS you can use some SSL flavors as well. So yeah, absolutely, why not? Um, Sometimes I would use. Okay, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to move over to the. How are we doing for time? Yeah, let's move on to the NLS, and we'll take some questions with regards to hardware summing later. The only thing I would say, I would add to this. Sometimes, and I recommend everyone to try it. Just run, even if you have like a 2-track, um, sound card. Run 2 cables from your output to your input. Be sure that you're not going to monitor the track that you're recording, because then it will feed back and it can destroy your speakers and whatnot. So make sure that you bring the fader right down of the recording channel. But try running the output back to the input. Record a mix through this combination and see how it sounds. Sometimes even doing that adds something. This is not summing. This is just going through the D to A and then the A to D. Another benefit, and this is something that actually I do want to talk about, is the fact that you can drive working like this, or working with analog summing, or just analog bouncing, I would call it, allows you to drive your A to D input. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to play this through the desk now. I'm going to lower the monitoring level, by 6 dB. Now I'm going to the outputs. I felt small, I crawl, but never reach the end. Select all the outputs. Now you want my time. And then let me take a reference point so I remember. So this is at -5. Never want to lie. So I'm gonna That's not my flavor. Push it up by 5 dB. Even after all this time, now I'm pushing more into the desk. Actually, I should do it 6 dB, so for comparison's sake. And I'm actually pushing. Let me look at the. Yeah, so now I can see that the A to D is. I'll just lower the monitor level so I can speak. I'm actually pushing the A to D. I'm clipping it, but that's a nice sound. I can exaggerate this. With a couple of friends. Sounds crunchy. This is something to experiment with, but this way of working. So let me put it back to how it was. So this way of working allows you to clip the A to D. A to D clipping is something that sounds like nothing else. No other plugin or no other way of gaining those 2-3 extra dBs of clipping sounds quite like it, and I really do like it. Another thing is, at the moment I don't have anything on my master bus, but I have the SSL master bus compression, I have the Fairchild, I have several other stereo compressors, and when I use them, again, and this is for making recalls very simple. So I keep those settings stationary. I never touch them. I have actually a picture of them in my document folder, so I can at any time go back to the exact settings. And this allows me, playing with the output, going through the desk, allows me to change the compression as well. And this is something that is recallable, because the next time I'm going to load this session, it will come up with the levels like that. And this will affect the amount of compression that I'll be using. So, any...
I'll tell you what, we're going to go to a poll for a second.
Okay.
Because we've asked, how do you sum up your mixes? And 59% do it through summing plugins.
Mm-hmm.
Only 14% do it through analog gear, and 26% do none of the above. So
That's
yeah.
fine. I think it makes
Yeah.
sense. But I urge everyone to try, especially if you have a sound card with multiple outputs, just run, a few outputs. Just bus your, I don't know, your drums to a stereo bus, your guitars, your vocals, etc. So eight outputs will do the. You'll hear the difference. Just run it like 1 and 2 into 1 and 2, 3 and 4 into 3 and 4. So you'll end up with 4 stereo stems, and then you'll do the final summing again in your DAW, but the sound will be different. So that's something interesting to try, even if you don't have a fancy desk or anything like that.
Can I just throw a question in there?
Sure.
A very interesting one here. Anon asks, summing for radio and YouTube, go or no?
Again, I don't believe in go or no. If it sounds good, then it sounds good. I don't see... I mean, possibly, since you'll be taking the edge of some of the transients by doing analog summing, you may say that then the data compression codecs will work more efficient, because they will have to deal with less transients to basically go through and not to compress in order to preserve them, thus keeping the data that they will compress less compressed, if that makes sense. So maybe there's a technical reasoning, that technical argument that is in favor in favor of this, but I don't know. Again, something to try. I want to move on to NLS. So this is analog summing. Let's put that aside. Now what we have is the song mixed in the box. And now I'm going to select all the channels. Now if you see here, I have subgroups. Not too many actually, maybe even one. But there's not much point in doing this. And as you can see, I'm not sending obviously I'm just sending the group master to the desk, and I'm going to do the same with NLS. So I'm going to make sure that all my subgroups are minimized, and then I'm going to select everything, including the auxiliary. Oh, I have some BVs here, which are subgrouped, and some other stuff, I think. Anyway, once they're all minimized, they won't be affected by by anything I do on the mixer when multi-selecting. So now I'm going to insert. I'm going to locate my last insert, because I want I want the NLS to happen after that. And I'm going to select a mono track. This is very important. And then, and I'll tell you why while this is thinking about that, because it takes a little bit of time. Then I'm going to insert a mono NLS on all the tracks. Now, since it can't insert a mono plugin on a stereo track, it will only insert it on the mono tracks. And this is quite important, because this is the order. If you don't want to do it one by one, then this is... So you select all the tracks you want the NLS to be applied on, and now you'll see that I'm actually talking rubbish because it's the other way around. Okay. Is it? Yes, because now it inserted dual mono. Sorry, I take that back. So basically, you select a stereo track and you insert a stereo NLS. And then, since it cannot insert a stereo plugin on a mono track, it will only insert it on the stereo tracks, which leaves all the mono tracks without NLS. And then I'm going to select the mono NLS and insert it on the rest of them. So now I have the NLS inserted on all my channels in the mixer. Now, with the NLS, we modeled 3 desks. Like I said, the SSL. Sorry, I need to. Okay, the SSL, the TG, the EMI desk, and this specific desk, this Neve V51 desk. Now, we've actually modeled 32 individual channels from each desk. And as you can see, when I inserted this across many plugins, let me open this one. This is preset 11. This one is preset 12. This is preset 13. If I go to this one, it will be preset 24. So basically, it inserts different channels, different individual channels on each track, 32 of them, and then it starts over again. And this is very, very important because it's not just the processing, it's not just the harmonic distortion, it's the differences that you have on any channel. And like what we talked about a minute ago, that happens on the real desk. So once I've done that, I can now, so this is the channel. Now I can go to my master fader, and I can insert the NLS bus, which is basically the simulation of the group, the stereo group. Now, each NLS folds like that, each instance, and you can assign each one of the instances to a different VCA group. They all default to VCA 1. What that allows me to do is that once I open this page, this now shows me the VCA groups. And now I can flip everything to an SSL. So now when I open this, they all, let me just open multiple instances so it's more visible. So I now open a few tracks, and from each one of them, once I open the VCA page, I can change all of them to a different desk, but they will retain their preset number, so they will retain the channel number. And this is really useful because I can then say that on all my drums, so let me just go to all my drums and set them to VCA 2. So now well, I'm not going to do it on every one because there's loads of them, but let's say these ones. So now my drums, and then I open the VCA page, my drums are now set to the Neve desk, and all the rest of them are set to the EMI desk. And this is really useful because I can now I can now drive. Let's put
Green
them on
eyes, cut ties
SSL, and
with
then
a
I can
couple of
drive.
friends.
So now,
Short hair, I fit everywhere I went.
so now I have control over the
Last
level,
place,
and I can also
two-faced,
drive
never
it.
knew about trends. I felt small, I crawl, but
So
never
this is
reached
really
the
cool.
end.
Actually, the drive sounds really cool on the Mike Hedges desk. So let me. So now I've changed all the tracks except for the ones I flipped to VCA2 to the Neve desk, and the drums are on the Spike desk. I'll change it to the EMI desk. And now I can drive. The drive on the EMI desk is amazing. And I can compensate by reducing the level a little bit.
Green eyes, cut ties
So this
with a
allows
couple of-
me to basically use a few desks, like 3 different desks over my mix, and I can pick and choose which tracks. So for instance, I want the lead vocal to be on so I want this on VCA3. So just the lead vocal is now on VCA3. So I can now change VCA3 to become an SSL desk,
Love friends,
and I can drive
short
it.
hair, I fit everywhere I went. Last place, two-faced,
Sounds
never
beautiful.
knew about trends.
Also,
I felt small,
I
crawled,
can flip
but
it
never reached.
to mic. Now, when I do that, it's like the old trick of basically patching the tape output to your mic input, which sounds amazing.
With a couple of friends, short hair, I fit everywhere I went. Last place, two-faced, never knew about trends.
Since I'm now going through this channel is routed to VCA3, I can't change the desk type. But if I set it to none, then it means I can individually change this channel, and then I can listen to the different, and it still stays on the mic input. I can listen to the different drive sound of the different desks, and the like I said, the EMI desk, the drive on it is amazing. Look,
I felt small, I crawl, but never reached the end.
this is obviously that's a little bit much, but I can.
Now you're asking favors.
This is so good. The Neve desk has the least amount of drive because
Never want to lie.
it has a lot of
That's
headroom,
not my
but still it sounds.
flavor. With a couple of friends,
The
short
SSL.
hair, I fit everywhere I went.
So
Last place,
that's a really cool cool trick as well. Now, and the nice thing about this, the way we designed it, is that you don't have to go to the master channel to change any of the master settings, because from each instance of NLS you can access all the VCA groups. So now I can bypass. So
two-faced, never knew about trends. I felt
so if you
small,
remember, I
I
set
crawl, but never reached the
some of the
end.
drums to group 2 and the
Now
vocal.
you want my time.
Oh, it's actually
Now you're
individual.
asking
Sorry.
favors.
Let's put that back to
Mm-mm.
VCA3.
Never want to lie.
So this is
That's not my flavor.
that's my vocals. That's some of my
Even
drums,
after all this time,
and that's the rest.
I decide to breathe.
And then I can also bypass the noise, or bypass the whole process. So we had a question about the noise. So you can hear it with or without the noise. I like the noise. I don't mind it. How are we doing for time? Oh, we still have some time.
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions coming.
Okay.
I'll throw this one at you first because you might decide to do it at the end. Some people are asking for you for comparisons between simply comparing the music with and without summing and comparing the NLS versus running through the Neve desk. I think you did
Okay.
some of that at the beginning, but it'd be great to go back through it.
Sure. So very easily done. And actually it will be a good comparison because I can compare like for like. So I can compare this Neve desk. So let me set all the groups to this Neve desk. And then so I can compare it with itself. So I can listen to the Neve desk NLS, and let's put the bus on. We say now, yeah. So that's going through the bus and everything. Now, actually, for that, I want to put this on the auxiliary return. So we'll be hearing the actual Neve desk without the NLS plugin and the NLS plugin with the NLS bus plugin. So let me do an A/B. So this comparison is between this channel is the NLS plugin over all the channels, modeling this specific desk, as opposed to this one, which is the actual desk. Let's hear it. Let me just make sure that the levels here are okay. The output levels are fine. Back to okay. So let's listen to that. NLS, Neve.
Green eyes, cut ties with a couple of friends. Short hair, I fit everywhere I went.
NLS.
Last place, two-faced, never knew about trends. I felt small, I'd crawl, but never reached the end.
Sorry.
Now you want.
Let's take the bit of the chorus. So you know what? Let's take 4-bar loop.
All this time, I
So that's the NLS.
breathe.
And now I'm gonna flip to the Neve.
Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe. Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe.
NLS.
Every time you all
May sound a little bit louder.
decide to breathe.
Let me just bring it down.
Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe.
Neve.
Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe. Every time you all this time,
NLS.
I decide to breathe.
I think it sounds quite similar. And then let's change them to an SSL desk. And we can hear the difference between the SSL and the real Neve.
Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe.
SSL and
Every
Neve.
time you all this time, I decide to breathe.
Yeah, so quite interesting differences there.
Yeah, it really was. I wasn't expecting it to be quite that impressive. Sorry, just lost myself for a second. And can you you compared the music with and without the summing just very quickly? I know you did that at the beginning, but people have asked for you to do
Yeah,
it again.
very
That's okay.
easily, just bypassing the NLS and the noise. And now I'm going to compare it going through the Neve and going through basically nothing.
Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe. Every time you all this time, I decide to breathe. Every time you all this time.
So you can hear that in the box it sounds a little bit more punchy, or it has a little bit more transients, because the desk will kind of smoothen some of these transients, so it kind of sound almost a bit louder, but it's not really. It's just that it sounds, the transients are a bit more natural, I would say, but I like the kind of analog smoothing of the transients. It makes it gel better on sometimes.
I got you. Okay, we've got a question that many people are asking. Summing using an analog desk. Is there a difference between summing using an analog desk or summing using a box like SSL Sigma or Dangerous 2?
Using NLS or hardware box?
A hardware box, I'm guessing there. Yeah.
Obviously. Again, like I said, just going through the converters into a hardware box would make the sound different. Would make it kind of softer, kind of. It will add some noise. Noise is a good thing. Noise gels things together. Noise kind of again, not for every style of music, but when we talk about analog sound, about this warmth, width, all those things that people are after, then it's about smoothing some of the transients. It's about harmonic distortion, and it's about noise. And all those things are added when you just go out of the box, out of the converter and back into the A to D. You get that. If you go into a hardware box, you'll get that even more. The NLS emulates these processes, but I mean, even changing different models within the NLS has a huge impact. So let alone changing, an SSL summing box, a Neve summing box, a Neve desk, an SSL desk. Yeah, everything will have a different sound, and I can't say which one is better. This is for every each to decide.
That's fair enough. Okay, I've got 4 questions that we're going to have to whip through fairly quickly. First one is why it's asked by sorry, it's just whipped off me. Well, I'll ask the question first. Why don't you insert the NLS as the first plugin? Why is it the end of your chain?
Because it's easier. I don't know. I suppose I can find some reasoning, some sonic reasoning for it, but it's just easier. I always start with the second plugin. I very rarely start with the first plugin, and then I can always stick something before the first one, which is the second one. So I can always put like tuning or another de-esser if I need to, or like an amp simulator or something like that. In this case, I can see that I put a TG channel before something, so I would always start with the second slot. I suppose I can always start with the third slot and leave the first one empty for NLS, but that's not how I do it. I always find it easier to just at the end of the mix go and put it last. Will it sound better if it was first? Yes, it would. I do it. I don't know if it would sound better or not, but I can possibly try. But now it's too late in the game because I don't want to move all my plugins and all that. So I just stick to that.
Okay. Yeah, we've got quite a few questions about clipping. So the first one, quickly, Piniel, apologise, that's not how your name's pronounced, says, is it okay to clip this particular summing plugin?
In terms of, it's a 32-bit process, so it won't clip the sound as such. However, again, this is a non-linear processor, so the input level is going to have an effect on the sound. So the louder you drive it, like the more you drive it, the more harmonic distortion will be introduced. The noise is fixed, so the more level you get into it, the noise will relatively will get quieter. There's no problem in clipping it, again, if you compensate for that. So it's enough to have, and this is something that I always have as a safety at the end of my chain, whether I'm having some mastering plugins or not. I have this set to minus 0.2 dB, so it would not let any clipping run into the D2A or into, if I bounce the file, into the file. So I will not introduce unwanted clipping. This will protect me against clipping. The NLS will not clip the sound if you're in the red. It will change the sound because the more you drive the input, the more harmonic distortion you will get.
Okay, we've got a couple of people asking what I think is a really good question here. Do you put the NLS in at the end of the mix or earlier and mix through it? And Alejandro, I think, apologies if that's wrong, and someone else has asked that. Warren has asked that. So would you start with the NLS?
No. Usually, and that applies to any mastering plugins. This is something that we want to cover in another session, in another open session. Any kind of anything that I would put over the whole thing is something that I will do last. So I will mix. I will do my mix. I will concentrate on getting the sound right, getting the vocals in focus, getting the kick and snare punchy, getting the low end, getting everything in place without any help, without anything that would make it sound better and will therefore allow me to work less hard on the mix. So I'll just do it in the box. Sometimes it sounds very bare. It sounds, I don't know, exposed and not very pleasant and kind of digital and all that. And I will fight through it. I will do whatever needs to be done to make it sound warm and punchy and wide and big. And once I'm happy with the actual mix and the mix is pumping and the vocal is there and you get the song and everything is great, then I will add things that will add flavor over the whole thing, add something that will make it sound even better. But I will not use things like that to make my life easier. Yeah.
Okay, we're looking at 8 o'clock now, so we're looking to wrap up pretty soon.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'm going to ask you then one final question. Just like to say thank you to everyone who sent in their questions. Apologise if we haven't been able to get to your question at all. It's not because it's been a bad question. So the final question for you. You ready for this? Could you describe, in a word, the sound of each of the 3 desks emulated by the NLS?
In one word, no. I would say that the let's go by order of appearance. The SSL is punchy. It doesn't allow much transients to go through in a good way. It has this kind of nice pumping, and it takes the edge of the high frequencies like a real SSL does, and we all like it, whether as an audience, because we've all heard thousands of songs that were mixed on SSLs, and you know these are some of the best sounding songs ever. So, and this is what it does. So I wouldn't say it's the purest sound, especially the E or the G. The more modern ones and the more recent ones, the J and the K and all the new ones especially are much more transparent. But we all love the sound of the classic SSL desk, and this is what it does. The EMI desk is it adds it like it has very kind of healthy low end with not much headroom on it, so it would make everything sound kind of beefy and a little bit bloated. It's not good for everything. However, it's really good for some things when you want something to sound heavy, slightly almost distorted. It's almost hard to get a clean sound out of it. So you can really, if you want to do that, you have to bring the gain right down. But it does sound big and really nice. The differences between the individual channels are the biggest, the most noticeable out of the three desks. So it's a very interesting sound. This desk, which is the Nevo desk, is the most punchy and clean, and preserves the transients in the best way out of the three. I like this desk. Obviously, I own it. Sometimes I prefer the sound of the SSL because I'm used to that sound. When I used to mix, like not in the box and not in a hybrid environment, then I used to use SSLs, G and E especially, although J and K. But this is my go-to kind of analog desk would be a G series. So I really like the sound of that. Yeah, all three sound very, very different, and this is why we chose these three different flavors. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to read out some poll results for a second.
Okay.
So we're looking at the NLS plugin owners. Which option do you prefer? Yeah, you're going to be happy with this. You've come out on top.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that.
Nice.
Yeah. So
how many people are we talking about?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Actually, I can give you the percentages. 50% like the NLS. 51%. You must have just voted. 33% like the EMI.
You mean the
16.
Nevo, not the NLS. It's all NLS.
Sorry, yes, the Nevo. Yeah. So yeah.
Nice.
Results. Are you good?
Yeah.
So
I'm
we're
good
good.
to take another.
Okay,
question or
we'll
two.
crack on with a few more questions because we do have some cracking questions.
Okay, cool.
Right, let's go back and have a look at some. Are you looking at mastering chains in another? Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so we will leave that one. Sorry about this. Okay, this is a very good question, actually. When adding NLS to all tracks in a project with 20 to 30 tracks, the CPU usage gets pretty intensive. Any suggestions for which ones to maybe not add NLS to?
Uh, hmm. I don't know how to answer this. I mean, does it? It doesn't. I don't find it taking too much CPU. It's quite light. I mean, obviously, when you have like 100 tracks or something, it will take a toll. But I don't know. I don't know. There's always the option of rendering the tracks through NLS before you start mixing. So that's an option. You can take your session before you do anything to it. Just take all the tracks, run them through NLS. It can be like an offline process, and it's done. You don't have to do it in the mix while running live and taking CPU. I don't know, maybe some hi-hats and shakers and things like that, which aren't very important or very loud or very, I don't know, but anything that is pads and strings and guitars and vocals and drums and bass and acoustic guitars and backing vocals, and it just makes it sound really good. So, yeah, I would say maybe things like some, percussion and things like that, or not to say that percussion are not important, obviously they are, but, um, you know, I don't know how much a 606 hi-hat is going to be massively affected by NLS. It will to a certain extent, but if you need to save on CPU, then I would try kind of high frequency percussions first without it.
Okay. Jazzy Fellow asks, would you send mono tracks to stereo NLS plugins as you did using the Neve desk? Would you use something like SoundGrid?
That's interesting, definitely. I mean, just out of, it will make your session quite cumbersome if you were to do that. So I would say, yeah, maybe just have a couple of stereo groups with NLS on them, and then send some mono tracks, like route it through those groups, so you can enjoy the stereo-ness of the NLS. Yeah, that's an interesting idea, actually.
Would you be able to use SoundGrid for anything like that, or would you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. That's another. Yeah, you can use. This is something that we're gonna cover in future open session, offloading CPU into SoundGrid. Yeah, this is something that we're definitely going to talk about. SoundGrid is we like SoundGrid. So, and we have a powerful server here, and this is something that we're going to cover later.
Okay. Dan K asks, the first mix I added the NLS plugin to forced me to make a number of level changes on each track as I was getting a lot of unsavory clipping. Are there any rules on track levels using the NLS?
I don't know why you would get clipping, but just it's very easy to just lower all the levels on the NLS, or the gain on all the NLS VCA. So if you grab one instance, doesn't matter which one, or in our case we're using 3. So just bring your faders down a little bit, or if it's a distortion or kind of overdrive or harmonic distortion that you're experiencing, then just bring the gain down. Fairly easy.
Okay, several people asking summing for EDM, house or techno. Can it help there too?
I'm like I said before, it's only something to experiment with and to try out. If you want something like really punchy, with a lot of headroom, clean and kind of digital and in your face and dry, then no. But if you want things to gel better, and again, you can use NLS on some tracks. You can keep, maybe it's a good idea to not run the kick through NLS, but to run the vocals and the backing vocals and the synths and strings through it, and to keep the kick and bass dry. Maybe it is good to distort the bass and to use an individual NLS setting where you run it through the mic input, because driving the bass is, especially if it's like a low kind of sine wave, it's always good to add some harmonics to it, so you can hear it rather than just feel it. If it's like a sub bass, so there's definitely room for experimenting with NLS on electronic music.
Okay, we're just going to just clarify a question that we actually said we'd cover in the pre-show, and we kind of covered it so far. And I can't remember who asked it, but do you recommend the analog noise on in the NLS plugin? Is it contributing to the summing?
It does contribute to the sound, if you like such a kind of slight, I don't know, yeah, if you like the flavor of NLS, then the noise is an integral part of it. It always sounds a little bit strange without the noise. The noise is very low, as we saw on this desk. The noise of over 40 channels on, and 40 D2As on and everything, and still the noise you get out of all of that together is at minus 100 dB. So it's not, you're not gonna hear the noise as such, and the noise of the NLS on the Nevo model, which is this desk, is exactly the same as it's on this specific desk. Maybe the EMI desk is slightly noisier. I think the SSL desk, the noise is around minus 85 dB. Still, it's all good. I like the noise. I don't mind it.
Brian asks, any tips on using the NLS together with the EMI TG12345 or the Red?
The TG12345 and the Red have, since they are channels, and it's actually the TG12345 is the channel, the complete channel from the same desk. So basically, they all, and the Red one, the Red 17 as well. So they basically have similar mechanisms that emulate the what's going on when you run through the channel. The main difference between the TG12345 and the NLS on the mic model is that the TG is one channel. It's two individual channels. Yeah, we have the left and the right, but that's it. And here you have 32. So that's, I would say that's the main difference. I find that having the multiple individual channels modeled is something that adds a lot of depth to the mix. I love the TG12345 plugin. I can do a whole open session just on that. It's an amazing plugin. It does have very similar sound if you just go through it without any compression and without EQ and without anything. It would sound very similar to the NLS plugin when set to mic, which is the same desk. But this one has 2 channels modeled and the NLS has 32. That's the main difference.
Okay, we got a really good question here from Nikolai. Apologies again. Are you using analog summing for FX buses like vocal reverbs, parallel compression,
Absolutely.
exciter?
Yeah. As you can see here, I have my effects returns. So they are routed through the desk, through the real desk, for when we did the comparison. So they are summed and come back here. And also they have NLS on them. Why not? They're, playing sound as much as any other thing. So yeah.
Okay. We got one more. Mix asks, has the number of channels used in a mix any impact with summing? For example, if I mix only 12 channels, then maybe summing isn't that important?
Again, it's not the summing as such as the sound, as it is the sound going through, be it the hardware or the NLS plugin. It's going through it. And sometimes if you have 12 channels, you're probably talking about, an acoustic production, something on which the instruments and the vocals are quite exposed. And yeah, it's like saying, would you mix it on a good desk or on not such a good desk because it has more or less channels? It's not relevant. If something sounds good, then it would sound good on any number of channels.
I think that's that point you just said. If something sounds good,
Yeah,
that's the important thing, isn't it?
Always
what we're trying to get home. How are you doing?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we can wrap up, and because we're gonna have more episodes, more sessions, more open sessions. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to thank anyone who made this possible, and especially Keith.
Thank you. Very kind.
You've done a great job.
Cheers.
And actually, DPA microphones who made this sounding better than the last one. The last session we had, which my mic was a bit noisy. These ones are pretty good. So thank you.
Looking very Madonna-esque.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time.
Well, thank you, Yoad, for such a great webinar. We hope you all enjoyed it. If you like this webinar and would like to see more open sessions like these, please let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Waves' YouTube channel for more advanced tutorials and future product releases. Thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you at the next Waves Open Sessions.